Hi everyone, Mark Merrill with Farm. We're on to now the President's New America, Part 2. Now, here, ladies and gentlemen, with the picture before you, is one of the most important legislative actions taken by President Trump, which will protect and exemplify the original sanctity of rights and freedoms for men and women in athletic competitions in the United States. What is it all about? Well, as you can see in this picture here, Mr. Trump is signing an order barring men from women's sports. That's basically what it's all about. He did it on February 5th, calling for an end to that debacle. Actually, that forced ideology. Making a minority a majority, or giving them voice to something that never should have happened. The order is aimed at upholding federal Title IX and the rules established in 1972. That's right, 52 years ago. All of a sudden, the Dems and the deflectocrats, as we call them, and the Biden and Harris regime, and Obama, I'm sure, and even Bill Clinton, wanted to abolish, or at least manipulate, so that all the minorities in this country, scream, 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 bitch, bitch, and moan, would get their way. Well, look at this picture right here, folks, and look at it well. There's nothing but young women here, and I'm talking about biological women. All around President Trump. The rules apply to K through 12 schools and universities that receive federal funding. Schools that fail to comply will face investigations and could lose federal funding according to the new order. Aw, you're going to lose your money, your precious money. It always revolves around the deflectocrats, doesn't it? It's all about the almighty dollar bill, not God or country, does it? Trump said the actions that he was taking are the latest in a sweeping effort to reclaim our culture and our laws from the radical left crusade against biological reality. Over 7,000 female collegiate athletes have come forward demanding that male athletes be removed from their competitions in the order notes. 900 medals in women's sports were awarded to male competitors in recent years, the White House said, noting that this has cost girls scholarship opportunities and other important mental and emotional milestones. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt pointed to recent polls that show widespread support for keeping men out of women's sports, even among Democrats, believe it or not. And a group of state attorneys general will convene at the White House soon to discuss how state laws on the issue can be enforced, according to one White House official. So there's that one. And it's a big one, folks. Now also, ladies and gentlemen, we have some breaking news, as they say, in the new developments on the major networks. And it's sometimes questionable wisdom about amateur athletes. The NCAA has also announced that it will support and defend the president's ban. That's right. The NCAA will speak up and say, like this little girl did about 3 or 4 years ago, I am not an oppressor. As you can see, part of it was about critical race theory at the time, but it also makes a bridge to the transgender movement. The NCAA, the governing body for collegiate sports in the U.S., banned transgender women from competing in women's sports effective immediately. Aligning itself with President Trump, the policy change came one day after Trump signed the executive order, as we mentioned, attempting to exclude transgender girls and women from female sports, a directive that supporters said would restore fairness, but critics contend infringes on the rights of a tiny minority of athletes. We're just talking about this, folks. And this bears emphasis here from FIRM, Fairness in Reporting Media, Mark Merrill. We're all about this right here. Truth, facts, reality, and common sense. And that's it. We defend the First Amendment. But you know what? We don't defend special rights. Not at all. Not one iota. Everybody is equal under the Constitution, whether you like it or not. Screw the CCP, Russia, and all these Iranian thugs, and not to mention Hamas and Hezbollah, murdering people out there just for the fact that they're Catholic, or they're Christian especially. The ideology and the narratives and the teachings in our major universities and some of our small colleges, which we worry about here in the state of Maine, are being harshly and brutally influenced in the brainwashed into thinking that the United States is a terrible place. It's racist. And it's white supremacy here. No, it's not. Never has been. Never will be. You want pushback? Leave. Get out. Get out of this country if you don't like it. Take your Palestine and Hezbollah and Hamas flags with you. You'll see how easy it is for you to scream bloody murder about your rights in a foreign country. The rights of a tiny minority of athletes. Are you kidding me? You gotta be kidding me, right? Here's what the NCAA wrapped up about, folks. Right here. A student athlete assigned male at birth may not compete on a women's team, the new policy says, basing sex on what doctors assign to infants at birth and what is marked on their birth records. Dig it. Gee, you know what, folks? I didn't think this was going to have to come to this as far as the kettle boiling over with common sense and truth and reality. Apparently so, because the leftist wingnut radicals still want to try and get around this. But you think that's going to happen? Don't think so. Well then, folks, in other fast-paced action by the Trump administration, we're going to go through all of the other things that Mr. Trump had gone through and passed, not just the one about the NCAA or the transgender alterations, but also to quite a few other things. And we're going to get to those here in just a moment as well. But in the same vein, you may recall these two people right here, folks, who are on the transgender opposition and proving both who had been victims of the attacks on them violently by Hamas, not by Hamas, or like Hamas, but by Antifa and Black Lives Matter back 3 or 4 years ago. They have been stellar, steadfast constituents of upholding the fact that it says right there on their placards, folks. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers, and on his, a human male who protects his kids from gender ideology. The transgender issues have got to come to a stop. You want to keep going to the Supreme Court about this? You going to keep getting stuff thrown back in your face, folks, because, or I should say ladies and birds out there. Yeah, you biological men with your crotch showing. Do I have to spell it out for you? So more politics, folks, as things happen here with Donald Trump taking the country back for us Americans. You burn this flag, you might as well leave now. Don't you even think about this one. You notice the American flag, ladies and gentlemen, flies freely in just about any state anywhere in the nation, from here to Hawaii and Alaska to Florida and back. Remember when there was a time, folks, was getting into be in our darkest time, was during the pandemic and only a year after it, and it continued for a while until it finally fizzled out like a dead campfire. You know why? Because people came around and they finally understood that the United States of America, all 50 states as shown here and here and here. You know what? We're the only hope you've got. Because the louder you scream, the worse it gets for you for not realizing that this is one nation under God, always has been, with truth, liberty, and justice for all. Get that part? All. You don't get special rights. You live with them and you live by the laws in this country, or you can go find something else in some other country. Go ahead and leave. That's the freedom you have if you don't like the way things are run in the United States of America. But that's the beauty of what God put into us all, folks. Free will. If you don't like it, leave. See how easy it is to live with your freedoms and screaming anything you want to, anywhere, any place, any time, because you feel you just can? Yeah, only here, folks. But you know what? It's now time for you to obey the laws. The laws that were put in place in 1776 and confirmed in 1791 under the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Too bad, so sad. Not. FBI agents, it seems, ladies and gentlemen, were involved in investigations of the January 6, 2021 breach of the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, but will not be punished if they were just following orders by superiors under the Biden administration and acted ethically. How about that one? Two Republican lawmakers have introduced legislation to complement the Trump administration's push against diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Yuck! And those practices in the federal government. Continuing on, ladies and gentlemen. The Senate has confirmed Scott Turner to serve as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Guatemala became the second nation to agree to accept U.S. deportees, regardless of their nation of origin. Well, what do you know? A second federal judge, though, not all things go smoothly. A second federal judge ruled to halt Trump's order on birthright citizenship, but I think that's going to go through eventually. The first flight carrying illegal immigrants to the detention center in Guantanamo Bay carried 10 members of the Tren de Aragua gang. Federal worker unions sued to block Trump's program that offers federal employees to resign in exchange for 8 months' pay. We'll see about that. Families and doctors sued to challenge the executive order that ended federal funding for transgender surgeries for minors. I'll bet you Janet Mills is one of those. A medical group sued the Office of Personnel Management and several U.S. health agencies for removing web pages and data from agency websites. Aww. Cry, moan, bitch. Unions sued to block the U.S. DOGE service from accessing computer systems at the Department of Labor. By the way, I heard a side note today, folks, in today's news. That Maxine Waters, you may recall, is Senate representative from California. Oh, another one from California. Go figure. Screaming bloody murder at that particular move by the DOGE, Musk and Ramaswamy and their staff. You can't access computer systems at the Department of Labor. We won't let you. Stand tall and stand firm. I'm not trying to impersonate her, but that's about the best I can do. Moving on. And speaking of DOGE, it'll soon hone in on the Federal Aviation Administration air traffic control system, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Treasury Department has confirmed in a letter to Congress that DOGE staff will be given read-only access to the Fiscal Service Bureau's nearly $6 trillion federal payment system. We're going to reel in this horse manure of spending by the Democrats. Republicans on the House Oversight Committee voted against a motion calling on Elon Musk to testify before Congress on his roles in the federal government. You know why, folks? I have attended so many court hearings and court cases representing businesses that I used to represent for the people under the law, from district to superior court and bankruptcy court. So don't mess with me. I know what I'm talking about. As an involved research and results and facts journalist for about 28 years. You know why that doesn't matter, folks, on the Oversight Committee? A motion to call on Musk to testify before Congress by the deflectocrats and those who hate him on his roles in the federal government because he was appointed. He's not being vetted, folks. He was appointed by Donald Trump, and so was Vivek Ramaswamy. That's it. Gee, too bad if you don't like it. One more thing under Doge. After reports surfaced that the federal government may have paid for subscriptions to media companies such as Politico, the White House announced February 5th that those payments will no longer be happening. Wow. So much for getting paid. Illegally. That's just like when Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, and some of the others, when they were the leaders of their party in Congress, decided that they were going to pay off protesters at the Supreme Court justices' personal homes and threatened their lives back in 2021 and 2022. You can look it up. Same thing. They paid for leaks. Media was kind of like their Gestapo. In some cases, it still is, and that needs to be cleaned up, folks. I'm not even going to put it past someone like Janet Mills or Angus King or Susan Collins or Shelley Pingree. But I believe Jared Golden is not that bright, not that intelligent enough to figure it out. Unless he's told to. You get your information any way you can, especially this way. Money talks, according to them. Even if it's the undermining of the country. Believe it, folks. Also, more than 40,000 government workers take a buyout as the deadline looms. Millions of U.S. government workers face a Thursday deadline, which was February 5th, to tell the Trump administration whether they'll accept a buyout or remain in their jobs, but still face the possibility of being thrown out of work if they decide to stay. Trump's aggressive drive to reduce the size of the government in a matter of weeks is unprecedented, and it's caused turmoil in the U.S. Capitol and sparked protests and union warnings that it might violate multiple laws. More than 40,000 of those employees, though, the federal ones, had accepted the buyout the evening before February 5th, according to a source. This from Newsmax, folks. A little after 7:30 in the morning on the 6th. Unions representing federal workers sued to block the deferred resignation program, but a federal judge in Boston is to consider their request. Buyout encompasses not only employees at domestic agencies like the Department of Labor, but it's a government overhaul, which is being led by Trump's billionaire advisor Elon Musk, as we just briefly spoke about on another issue of DOGE. It's resulted in purges of personnel in a number of departments that significantly scaled down America's main humanitarian aid agency, the U.S. Agency for International Development. More cuts are likely, and one source at the Office of Personnel Management said officials upped the demand for layoffs from 30% to 70% of staff. The White House says it's following through on Trump's campaign promise to cut wasteful spending and slim down a bureaucracy that many conservatives see as left-leaning and unresponsive to the president's agenda. Democrats say the effort is illegal, as the U.S. Constitution gives Congress authority over spending matters. Everyone is stressed and frustrated. One worker at DHHS who spoke on condition of anonymity, surprise, the mood is awful. Oh. Yeesh. But, you see, Republicans control both chambers of Congress. Hello? Ding, 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 ding. Anybody forget that? They have cheered the effort. Democrats have been unable to stop it, and that's why. All 47 Democrats in the U.S. Senate are expected to vote against confirming Trump's pick for White House Budget Chief Russell Vought. V-O-U-G-H-T is his last name. V-O-U-G-H-T, Russell Vought. But he's still expected to win confirmation with the support of the chamber's 53 Republicans. See, 53 to 47 is a greater number. Spell that out for some of you millennials. Sad we have to do this, folks. Friggin' sad. Now, don't we think we're done? We're not yet. The president is going to get a lot of things done, folks, especially with his Vice President J.D. Vance as well. But we move on. Unfortunately, we have to put in here Janet Mills' statement on Trump administration's tariff announcement. She issued a statement in response to Trump's announcement on February 1st, or when it would take place February 1st, implementing tariffs on imports from Canada, China, and Mexico. Quote, I'm deeply concerned that President Trump's tariffs, especially those on Canada, will increase prices for Maine people at a time when they can least afford it. Canada is Maine's largest trading partner, and our economy is deeply intertwined with Canada's economy. Maine businesses and Maine people rely on Canada not just to sell and purchase goods, but as a major source for energy, from heating fuel to gasoline, to natural gas, to electricity. These tariffs, she said, will drive up energy prices, increase the cost of everyday goods that Maine people rely on, royal markets, and, oh no, destabilize our economy. She says the president campaigned on bringing down the price of eggs, bread, heat, housing, and cars. The tariffs will do the opposite. Well, gee whiz. Nothing's perfect, Janet. And what you have to say is about the only thing we do say in certain circumstances like that, being an objective reporter and journalist for almost 30 years. But you know what? You're full of it. Go check out her speech for Maine Public Broadcasting and all the other legendary or legacy networks that decided to chime in about how much she wants to spend. Close to $2 billion in taxes. Let's see if the tariffs make a difference, because they will. It takes time for these things to go through. Yeah, we're only about 6-7 days in from that announcement. Mr. Trump put it in effect January 30th. When it takes effect, oh, sure we'll see prosperity from it. Ladies and gentlemen of the law-abiding United States, boys and girls, all of you biological people out there who aren't swimming in minority special rights, screaming for your voice to be heard. And one minor thing, folks, but it's really not minor. You see what would happen here in the last few days is that Trump has made a military announcement that put America's enemies on their heel. Mr. Trump, back here, said the White House isn't going to be pushed around anymore, and the world has been put on notice. Why? Because his military announcement put the enemies on their heels, and here is why. According to this report from DC Daily Journal, that's dcdailyjournal.com, by the way, his Gaza proposal sparked debate. The White House clarifies no U.S. troops are going to be involved. The press secretary, as you already know, Caroline Leavitt, made it clear a couple of days ago that the president is not planning to send American troops into Gaza, despite his recent remarks suggesting the U.S. would take over the war-torn region. It's very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in the rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people, but that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort either. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region, and she praised Trump's ability to think outside the box, calling him a visionary leader who solves problems that many others, especially in this city, meaning Washington, D.C., claim are unsolvable. Oh, you know what? That explains everything. Something that happened just before we started posting this podcast, folks. Seems Maxine Waters, one of the representatives of the state of California in the U.S. Senate, was seen screaming at Department of Labor employees not to go into work. And if they did, they were committing an unconstitutional crime. Really? She knows that? She's wrong. And also, there was word that around the Capitol building, I guess during a break, that Chuck Schumer was dancing around trying to loosen himself up, I guess, with a beer and an avocado. What good that does, I have no damn idea. But going back to our story, folks, the clarification Mr. Trump gave on February 4th that the U.S. would assume a long-term ownership position in Gaza to stabilize it, will take over the Strip, and he said, we, meaning the United States, will do a job with it too, declaring during a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he said, the both of us, meaning Israel and the United States, will own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site. Trump outlined a sweeping reconstruction plan, emphasizing economic development over continued conflict. Level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for people in the area. Do a real job, do something different, just can't go back. If you can go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. One of the most controversial aspects of his plan involves removing all Palestinians from Gaza. It's a demolition site right now, according to Caroline Leavitt, spokesperson. It's not a livable place for any human being, and I think it's actually quite evil to suggest that people should live in such dire conditions. Of course, there's going to be backlash. Trump's proposal triggered fierce opposition, particularly from Hamas, the Iranian-backed terrorist organization that controls Gaza. What President Trump stated about his intention to displace residents of the Gaza Strip outside it and the United States' control over the Strip by force is a crime against humanity, said a senior Hamas official to Fox News. Democrats, predictably, erupted with outrage. Surprise! A Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. I'm speechless. It's insane. Can't think of a place on earth that would welcome American troops less. Even Republicans voiced hesitation, according to Lindsey Graham, formerly a supporter of President Trump, who acknowledged the plan might be problematic but remained open-minded. But as Trump laid out his bold vision for the region, the world watches closely to see if his signature deal-making prowess can reshape one of the world's most volatile areas. Others were more receptive, like Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota. Brushed off the controversy, framing Trump's remarks as part of his broader vision for peace. And he also told reporters, I think he wants to bring more peaceful, secure Middle East into focus and put some ideas out there. You can find that all on DC Daily Journal, folks. For right now, that's all we have, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here on FIRM, Fairness in Reporting Media. I am Mark Merrill, as always, making sure that you hear the truth, facts, reality, and common sense, as we always promote right here behind me. And anytime at all, please check out our podcasts on Fairness in Reporting Media through rumble.com/fairnessmedia1, rumble.com/fairnessmedia1, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, folks. Check out Fairness in Reporting Media at gmail.com, Fairness in Reporting Media at gmail.com. In the meantime, everyone out there, stay safe and peace to everyone.